hours after petitioning the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service to investigate Justice Yoni Kolendi and Richard Jakpa over the alleged interference of administration of justice. Daniel Mafo Oforiata, a Chebi indigene, has escalated the matter to the presidency. Now, this time, he is asking President John Dramani Mahama to remove Justice Yoni Kolendi as a Supreme Court judge. My colleague, Dennis Poberi Wadam Esquire, has been following this matter as it's been unfolding over the last few hours that we've been watching quite closely. And what exactly is this gentleman seeking, especially when it comes to the matter of the position of the law, and if this is going to be considered, what this process will be. Yesterday, that is good to have you. Yesterday, we got to hear of Daniel Mafo Oforiata's name for the very first time because he petitioned the CID of the Ghana Police Service.
Precisely.
Now he's escalated the matter, and what is he asking for again?
Well, so that's what we are learning. That's beyond the petition that he put before the CID for some investigations to be conducted in respect of allegations he makes against his Lordship Justice Yoni Kolendi and Richard Jakpa in respect of that conversation which we specifically detailed last night, a fallout from that particular trial, the ambulance trial last year, in which Dr. Kesela Tuforsen was standing trial with two others. We are now understanding that he also put before the presidency another petition, this time around seeking the removal of His Lordship Justice Yoni Kolendi in respect of the same matter. We are only able to tell because what we gather is that from what was contained in the statement or the petition to the CID, it's basically on the same issues that have now been put in a petition again to the presidency. Mind you, this will come directly under Article 146, and as the law is, when it gets to that stage, matters are very confidential, supposed to be in camera, right from the petition to when the committee is done with its work, that if it ever progresses to that level. But the only reason we are able to understand what went into that petition is because we have already dealt with a certain leg of this matter, which is before the CID. And the understanding we get is that this petition, which we understand has been submitted to the presidency, is also predicate on the same or substantially on the same set of facts, Alfred. So that's what we are learning.
I see, but then again, if this is to be considered, and we're very mindful of the boundaries of our conversation on this as well, because as you indicated, it's early days yet. What's the process going to be?
Well, so that's also opened up another conversation which has been a very controversial one, and that has to do with the removal of the Chief Justice. Now there's an argument whether if the Chief Justice is removed as a whether the Chief Justice removed as a Chief Justice also loses the position of a Justice of the Supreme Court. Those who think that should not be the case argue that the removal process for a Chief Justice is different from the removal process of a Justice of the Supreme Court. In this case, if it ever progresses, we'll be looking at the removal process for a Justice of, of the Supreme Court. And that takes us, again, to Article 146. Except this time around, we are looking at it from the point where this would trigger a process that will have to do with the removal of a Justice of the Supreme Court and not necessarily a Chief Justice.
Chief Justice. So, then this particular provision in this article strictly applies, so that then you wouldn't have to import any other ruling in the case of Ejechum and others. This strictly applies.
Yes.
Because it's not a Chief Justice.
Exactly.
It's a Superior Court judge.
Yes.
Okay, let's get
So that's why we needed to emphasize the point that the removal process for the two individuals is separate. So when you look at it, 1461 says that the Justice of the Superior Court, or in this case, let's just stick to what it is, because we know what it is.
Absolutely.
This is Justice of the Superior Court.
Perfect.
We are not dealing with chairman of regional tribunals. Shall not be removed from office except for stated misbehavior and incompetence, or on ground of inability to perform the functions of his office arising from infirmity of body and mind, that the Justice of the Superior Court of Adjudicator may only be removed in accordance with the prescribed, with the procedure specified in this article. Now, this is where it begins. This is the procedural aspect of it.
That's right.
That where the President receives a petition for the removal of a Justice of a Superior Court other than the Chief Justice, and for the removal of, he shall refer the petition to the Chief Justice
Right.
When the president receives, he shall refer it to the Chief Justice, who shall determine whether there's a prima facie case.
So let's stay with that a bit. So in this particular the clause in this article, from what we saw in the case of the removed Chief Justice,
yes,
a 5-member committee was set up. But this time around,
but let's see, we still haven't got there yet.
Let's go.
Yes, because remember, a prima facie was determined before the committee was set up. So we are still at a point where it says that when the president, upon receipt of that petition,
so which has been done now,
that's what we are learning.
Right.
But of course, receipts will also be acknowledged from the presidency.
Absolutely.
So we are hoping that if indeed it's been submitted as it's been reported, then the presidency would issue a statement to that effect, if they are minded to communicate the status of how things are shaping out. It's important to say
they are not obliged to let us know.
If it progresses, they would have to.
Yes, but
we have seen that in the case of the removed Chief Justice.
Absolutely.
Where we were informed that some petitions had been received and what the process was, and that was the beginning of the legal hurdles for that. But as we speak now, what we gather is that it has been. Except we have not heard from the presidency exactly what the status of it is.
Right.
But of course, for purposes of education, if it ever progresses, this is the procedure we are looking at.
Absolutely.
From the president to the Chief Justice, now we have an acting Chief Justice.
Yes.
So, and then there will also be a determination of a prima facie. This time around, this prima facie is determined by the Chief Justice. Mind you, in the other procedure that I've seen in respect of the Chief Justice, it was done together with the Council of State, the President of the Council of State. In this case, it's the Chief Justice who does that. Now, after that where the Chief Justice decides that there's a prima facie case, he shall set up a committee consisting. You see that this provision is very clear as to who does what. That he, the Chief Justice, shall set up a committee consisting of 3 justices of the Superior Court. There again, you see the distinction. In the case of the Chief Justice, Chief Justice,
yes,
there were 2 Superior Court justices. In this case, there are 3 of the Superior Court justices. They are appointed by the council, the Judicial Council, and 2 other persons who are not members of the Council of State, nor members of Parliament, nor lawyers, and who shall be appointed by the Chief Justice on the advice of the Council of State.
Right.
So clearly, there's another distinction here. In the case of the Chief Justice, you have 2 justices of the Superior Court. In fact, in that particular one, is 2 justices of the Supreme Court. This talks about 3 justices of the Superior Courts. So it could include justices from the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Superior Court itself. So those, now that takes us back to those who argued that the processes were different. What they were essentially arguing is that if Justice Gertrude Tukono were to be removed as a justice of the Supreme Court, she ought to have gone through this process, and not one that had 2 justices of the Supreme Court, and basically, so that's the controversy is ongoing, for which the Attorney General is seeking an interpretation. Absolutely. That's a matter which is still pending. But just like I said, for purposes of education. Now, upon the composition of this particular committee, the committee appointed under Clause 4 of the article shall investigate the complaint and shall make its recommendations to the Chief Justice, who shall forward it to the President. There again, you see a distinction that when the committee that was looking into the matter of the Chief Justice were done, they forwarded their recommendations straight to the President. They went and met the President, handed over that envelope. In this case, they are saying that the Chief Justice will make the recommendations. No. Let's stay here. Yes. Investigate the complaint and shall make its recommendations to the Chief Justice. So the committee goes to the Chief Justice, who then forwards it to the President. Then it continues. So where the petition is for the removal of the... No, this is for the Chief Justice.
Application.
Yes. So the committee appointed under Clause 6, this is also in respect of the Chief Justice. But essentially, what it also ends in is the fact that whatever recommendations are contained in that the findings of the committee will be those that the President will be bound by. So the President shall, in each case here refers to, be it in respect of the Justice of the Superior Court or the Chief Justice, act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee. So this is how it generally looks like. Should this ever progress to the next stage. But like you said, this is what we are gathering based on the complaint that was made to the CID. We do know what the complaint generally is, and now we are learning that that complaint again has been put in the petition, which has been sent to the presidency, seeking the removal of His Lordship, Justice Yoni Kolendi. And
this person we're talking about is Daniel Mahama Foriata.
Yes,
and Daniel from Chebi. That's
Daniel
the man.
Mahama, yes, Foriata.
We have his picture. That's the man in black next to Richard Jakpa.
Precisely.
Right. I see. And it's early days yet on this. It's one that we're looking at and following quite closely, as we did indicate. If the presidency is minded, as we saw in the case of the process as was started, where the former Chief Justice Gertrude Arabai Sabatokono, Felix Kwachofosu, issued a press statement telling us about the receipt of the petitions. This time around, we haven't heard or seen any press statement whatsoever acknowledging receipt of this petition that is said to have been sent by this Daniel Mahama Foriata, but it's one that we're picking up and following quite closely, the signals of this petition at the presidency and what's going to be happening in the coming days. So stay with us here on